I've already made 2 videos about my thoughts on Helluva Boss, and I wanted to return to the topic again to see if I still feel the same way. I definitely jumped the gun when I made my videos a few years ago about Helluva Boss and Has Been Hotel's established lore, feeling flimsy and that the fans seem to do a lot to fill in the holes, and that anything canon to explain how the world works is done with supplemental material. I still feel that I shouldn't have to pour over hours worth of podcasts or live streams to get answers to questions about basic world building. And I do feel fans and Vivzipop herself pulls a lot of answers from Dante's Inferno, which is fine. Dante's Inferno being the 14th century poem that first established that hell had 9 circles. Supplemental material is provided in addition to what is already present or available to complete or enhance it. In my opinion, it should not serve to answer basic world building questions, which in my opinion should be answered in the original material in some shape or form. Now that 2 seasons have finally aired and we are able to watch the show from start to finish of both seasons in the structure they were originally intended to be in, do we still need to watch the supplemental material to get answers to basic world building questions? Questions like what happens to the living when they go to hell? For instance, in episode 1, it kind of jumps from one character dying to going straight to IMP to employ them to get revenge on the living. It would have been nice to see her have the moment where she realizes she's died and is now in hell. So she's serving as like the audience's avatar while she's navigating her way through hell and finding IMP, so that the audience is learning with her instead of just jumping straight from, oh, I died and now I want revenge. But I understand that the main characters in this show are the members of IMP themselves, so maybe that was why the writers decided not to go that route. Or we could have even used the boy that gets killed in the pilot as some kind of avatar for the audience to understand how the world works. He dies and then wakes up in hell as a demon, so we learn, like I just said earlier, so we learn along with him on how this version of hell works. Of course, if you watch the Has Been Hotel pilot, Alistair does give a little bit of an explanation as to how this hell works. A sinner dies and ends up in hell, and this is their eternal punishment.
I don't think there's anything left that could save such loathsome sinners. The chance given was the life they lived before. The punishment is this. There is no undoing what is done.
But if imps and demons can die all over again in this version of hell, as is implied as this version of hell needs to be purged every now and then.
We just went through another extermination. We lost so many souls, and it breaks my heart to see my people being slaughtered every year. Isn't there a more humane way to hinder overpopulation here in hell?
It's no longer an eternal punishment. It really does feel like we're thrown into the middle of things and we're left to kind of figure things out on our own, pulling things from thin air. So then we have to go and listen to podcasts or live streams to get the answers we should have gotten or could have gotten if the writing was just that little bit more sympathetic to an audience that isn't familiar with demonology or religion or hasn't seen the pilot for Has Been Hotel. Questions like what happens to the living when they go to hell? Do they know that they're dead, or do they have to be told that they're dead? It sounds like it could be the former, since Oopty knew he had died and went straight to IMP immediately. As Blitz said, he stank of the living world, whatever that meant.
Oh, this all reeks of the living world. Did you just die? Yes, moments ago, in fact, which is what brought me here.
How are we able to tell the sinners, you know, the souls of people that used to live on Earth are now in hell? How do we tell the difference between them and imps and hellborn demons that already exist in hell or were born here? Because the design library is very confusing in this show. For instance, in episode 1 of Helluva Boss, the teacher that dies, her sinner form is very close to what an imp or succubus is. So does this mean that when humans die, they become imps and demons? So then imps used to be humans at some point? Of course, reading the fan wiki tells you that no, this is not the case, but it's still kind of annoying that I had to do this in the first place to get these answers. This is what I mean when you have to rely on supplemental material to answer basic world building questions instead of getting the answers from the show itself. If you know your demonology, then of course this version of hell is obviously made up of different versions of hell from different religions, not just Abrahamic religions like Christianity or Islam or Judaism. I just like to know the rules of the world that these characters exist in before really getting engaged into the story, but that's just my preference. To me, the world that these characters exist in is the foundation for their story, so in order for their story to be strong, it needs to exist and take place in a world that makes sense, or is at least explained in some shape or form within the story that I don't have to go to podcasts or live streams to really learn about. I'm not saying that Vivzy Pop's universe has to have like a Tolkien style of explanation of how this works, but at least have it be clear how this world works before getting into character arcs and multiple plot lines that seem to just hang there. But I'll get into that more later in this video. Helluva Boss is set in Hell, which is a place regarded in various religions as a spiritual realm of evil and suffering, traditionally depicted as a place of perpetual fire beneath the earth where the wicked are punished after death. It isn't stated in the show until episode 3 of season 1 that this version of Hell is made up of rings when Blitz tells Verosica to go 3 rings down.
I believe the nearest ocean is 3 rings down!
I'm not saying that this show has to state or spoon feed us exactly how this version of Hell works. I just find it interesting that a poem from the 14th century is regarded as being the definition of how Hell is structured, and we're somehow expected to know this already going into this show. What I'm saying is the supplemental material in the case of Vivzy Pop's work serves to not just reinforce, enrich or extend, but it's used to actually fill in holes that weren't filled in the original material. The show should be able to stand on its own without the supplemental material, which in my opinion, it sadly doesn't. When you have to explain the reasons for your character designs after an episode airs, like Vivzy had to do when episode 4 finally aired, you know your design is problematic. I mean, it's obvious that Vivzy Pop's designs aren't exactly aiming for accuracy here, but Beelzebub's design, to me, is just way too busy, but that's just my personal preference. And heaven forbid you say anything bad about the show, people jump on you like you kicked a puppy. Now that almost 3 years have passed and 2 seasons of Helluva Boss have been released, do I still feel like Helluva Boss is indeed a Helluva Mess? Well, let's take a look at the relationship between Solas and Blitz first, as this serves as the backbone of the story for the show. Solas and Blitz's relationship is a complicated one and romantically very one-sided. Solas is clearly obsessed with Blitz and is probably in love with him, and sees him as a romantic partner. Blitz, however, shows no reciprocation for that, as established in the pilot and the episodes that followed, while Blitz takes advantage of how intoxicated Solas is with him, simply so he can continue to run his company.
If I hadn't slept with that privileged asshole, none of us would have access to the living world. What?
Without Solas and his grimoire, Blitz could not go to the living world, therefore, IMP could not exist.
My book, Blitzy. The book I was given to do my job, that I have allowed you to use to do yours.
And without Blitz, Solas would be stuck in a loveless marriage with an abusive wife, trapped in his gilded jail of a palace while striving to provide comfort for his daughter Octavia. He is desperate for thrills and excitement and an escape, which he finds in his arrangement with Blitz.
You know, I have been permitting you to access the mortal realm less than legally for some time now, but I do need it back to fulfill my duties. What if we worked out some kind of exchange? Once a month, on the full moon, you return the book to me, followed by a night of passionate fornication. And you get to keep it all the rest of the time,
Blitz calls Solas a privileged asshole. Without Solas, IMP would not have access to the living world. Blitz stole the book, which Solas needs to do his job, and Solas holds this over Blitz because Blitz can't do his job without his grimoire. And Solas will permit him to use the book in exchange for fornication. Gross. This is not love. This is lust. Not to mention they're blackmailing each other to stay in this arrangement. Lust in itself is not wrong, but it's not what a relationship should be based on, in my opinion. Blitz isn't looking for a relationship actively, but he is looking for some kind of attachment and appreciation. Hence his obsession with Moxie and Millie, who are content with each other, clearly in love. Blitz wants what they have, so forces himself into their lives outside of work wherever he can. This does come off as comedic at first, but it is a serious problem, and the only character that seems to have a problem with it is Moxie. Millie seems to find it amusing, but because Blitz is afraid of intimacy and problems with reciprocation when it comes to a relationship, as Veronica says when they are in Aussies.
Blitzo? I used to date.
Oh, Veronica, you're here.
I'd stroke on my plate. Yeah, but when it was my turn, he did no reciprocating.
He also craves it as well, as his hallucination says in episode 6.
I believe your self-conscious is trying to tell you that you simply cannot fathom proper intimacy, but also craving as well.
Does immaturely insulting me make you feel better about your sad, single life?
It actually does.
Blitz is scared he's going to die alone.
I'm gonna die alone, aren't I? Just a wrinkly, old, weathered waste.
Which is something imps can do in this version of Hell, apparently. Which is kind of confusing, considering in the pilot for Hazbin Hotel, Angel questions how he could die again. Would that make him double dead?
I'm gonna kill him. Too late, Toots. Wait! Would that make me double dead? Where exactly do I go? To double hell?
But then in the same pilot, Cherry Bomb asks where he was. She thought he was dead or something.
Where you been anyway? I thought you up and died or something.
Oh, I wish!
It begs the question if demons and sinners can die again within this version of Hell and can get hurt and be in hospital.
Seriously, why does hell have a hospital?
That would mean that there's some kind of death for the dead, meaning that these imps and demons are not immortal like they usually are in every single other depiction of hell I have ever seen in fiction. It's clear that this version of hell had to have some kind of afterlife because Hazbin Hotel, the very premise of Hazbin Hotel is on the fact that hell is overpopulated and there is a purge to try to solve that problem momentarily, but then that would mean that the very idea behind IMP is adding to the overpopulation problem. So I just have to wonder if this rule was added purely so that when Stolas is kidnapped by Stryker and does indeed get hurt, we're genuinely concerned of the possibility that Stolas could die, which is exactly what Stella wants him to do since she hired Stryker to kill him.
I want this cheating prick dead. I don't care who you have to go through. Make it happen!
When he dies, his duties, his possessions, his allegiance, it will all pass to Via.
Change the plans, darling. I need the prick alive.
No, you stupid cow!
And for some reason in the episode when this happens, Blitz seems surprised that Stolas could get hurt, in spite of living in a hell where it's clear that you can get hurt here. His surprise at the fact that Stolas can't get hurt is also kind of inconsistent with the fact in episode 5, Blitz himself stopped Stryker from assassinating Stolas.
I'm not a fan of someone I offered a job to about to off my easiest lanky ticket to Earth behind my back.
Running a company where you are literally professional murderers existing in a version of hell where other hired assassins exist and not only exist but have access to weapons that can only kill demon royalty, which he knew about because he saw it right here when Stryker was about to assassinate Stolas the first time. So why was Blitz so surprised that Stolas could get hurt?
Stolas got hurt bad.
Stolas got what? Ow. He can get hurt?
Why didn't Blitz take Stolas' call for help more seriously? Especially when Moxie tells him that it's Stryker who has taken him, therefore has the weapons that are able to kill Stolas.
What does he look like, Your Highness?
Sexy?
That's Stryker, sir!
Yeah, Blitz had to take Luna to get this injection, but alternatively, this could be read as the first time we actually see Blitz care about Stolas.
Of all the days for him to get his stupid feathered ass kidnapped, I have waited 5 years for this appointment. Me and my little red hole!
So I wonder in future episodes, will Blitz even bother to visit Stolas at all while he's recovering in hospital? I highly doubt it, especially since what happened in Aussies in episode 7, after Blitz takes Stolas home, what happened was never discussed again, which was expected in episode 8, which was delayed for reasons that are too long to get into in this video. But even in the 4 episodes that followed, this event was never talked about again. Because who cares about resolving conflict when it's more important to see Stolas' human form in the human world? The more I think about it, I sound like I'm talking about some kind of soap opera instead of an animated cartoon about hired assassins who happen to be imps that's set in hell. I just feel like I should be having more fun than I am with this. I mean, isn't the whole point of hell being that it's meant to be a place of eternal suffering? Being able to die within hell just doesn't make any sense to me. This version of hell even has its own mafia, which Moxie used to be a part of. Not only can characters die in hell, but they can also reproduce. So how is this hell? I don't get it. As I said in one of my previous videos, the pilot promised to deliver a show that mirrored the inefficiencies of corporate office jobs, showing characters stuck in literal dead-end jobs that they hate, working alongside people that result in considerably toxic personality clashes that also showcase inappropriate behaviour from colleagues who do not understand or recognise social boundaries. A boss is someone who manages their employees while a leader inspires them to innovate, think creatively and strive for perfection. Every team has a boss, but what people need is a leader who will help them achieve greatness. Blitz to me seems to be a laissez-faire type of boss. He allows his company to pretty much do as they choose without interfering all that much himself, but then when things do go wrong, he blames his team instead of taking any responsibility himself. A boss should ensure you understand your work, which Blitz does do in all fairness, but he is no leader, as he doesn't support or guide his employees through their work. A good leader inspires people and makes them excited about their work. I don't think Blitz even needs to inspire Millie and Moxie to do their job because they already enjoy what they do, mainly because they get to do it together. Maybe this is why Blitz is so obsessed with Eminem's relationship, because he craves what they have, intimacy. And there's a chance for him to have that with Stolas, and when Stolas offers that to him to just hang out after they go to Aussies, Blitz rejects him.
Solas, don't act like what we have is anything but you wanting me to f you, okay? You make that really clear all the time.
I mean, he's not wrong.
When I'm lonely, I become hungry. And when I become hungry, I want to choke on that red of yours, your sad and lick all of your before taking out your and with more teeth until you're screaming.
I cannot wait to feel your slimy inside of my. Why don't you all join me at the festival? I can guarantee you all special access. You were here to ravish me, weren't you?
To maintain interpersonal resilience, you should actively listen to what the other person has to say. Give people time to be present when you're with them. Develop and work on your communication skills. Be understanding and empathetic. Skills that Blitz simply does not practice in any capacity. Or when he does, he overcompensates or humiliates the other person, or he simply shuts down and runs away, or he pushes them away, or just uses them to get what he wants, like he does with Stolas.
The prince is our boss's boyfriend.
So you even con that ditzy blue blood into getting you to the surface?
Well, it's long and complicated, but the short answer is yes. It's a transactional, you see.
Helluva Boss is a series that is a study of social psychology. This means anything from friendships, platonic relationships, family relationships, love, and professional relationships within the workplace. The show is about interpersonal relationships, people who are from various backgrounds in different situations. It's meant to show understanding, courtesy, tact, empathy, concern, and politeness. Basically, it's a show that demonstrates everything you shouldn't do when it comes to relating to the people around you, friends, family, or romantic partners. But but because the show does this, it makes the characters extremely relatable and likeable. It's a lot of fun to watch, and yeah, I do keep coming back for more. My problem is that the show is not what the pilot promised. But is that a good thing? Relatability is great, but what I want is a story that makes sense and gives me what was promised. A dark comedy series about hired assassins who happen to be imps. Something the show delivered only in a handful of episodes so far, and instead focuses on the relationship between Solas and Blitz. The pilot promised the show about a company of assassins who go to the living world to kill the living to get revenge for the dead. Can we get back to that, please? I'm just not sure Helluva Boss is logical or consistent enough with what the pilot established. As I said in a previous video about this show, the biggest problem that Helluva Boss has is that it is a spin-off of a show that at the time of this video being released has not yet aired. That being said, I do firmly believe that Helluva Boss has proven that it has done more than enough to stand on its own without riding the coattails of Has Been Hotel. Though because it aired before Has Been, I was expecting Helluva Boss to serve as world building for Has Been Hotel. This in hindsight was probably an unfair expectation of me to place on it, though the pilot for Helluva Boss implied this was going to be an episodic series which would contrast Has Been Hotel's possible season-long storyline. Now that more episodes have aired, that assumption was wrong. Helluva Boss does have a story threaded through the episodes that mainly focus on the relationship between Blitz and Solas. The pilot episode structure is a thread of fast-paced cutaway gags or moments that focus on the characters outside the office briefly. This is starkly in contrast to what the show delivered. Episode 1 does establish that the imps can get hurt. Blitz is shot, but it did deliver what the pilot promised, a company of assassins that kill the living to get revenge for the dead. And then episode 2 happened. Tonal shift. This feels like an entirely different show now, but is that a bad thing? A show needs to be able to expand and develop beyond what the pilot established, but my problem is the show doesn't seem to stick to what the pilot established and cuts all ties with the pilot, but still makes calls back to it. So is the pilot a standalone episode as it's meant to be, or not? Though pilots for all shows are vastly different visually from the show that follows, pilots are used to pitch the show, to sell the proof of concept in hopes of it being greenlit for network screening. Helluva Boss of course airs on YouTube, but it is treated as a spin-off of Has Been Hotel, which did get greenlit, so is serving as a way to establish the world Has Been will be set in. So you'd think the pilot would demonstrate the tone and style the final product would be. The series that follows has a different structure from the pilot, and that to me is a big problem. There are no cutaway gags, no fast cuts between scenes, and tonally it feels just like a different show. I mean, IMP is a company that wants clients to employ them to kill the living, the clients that have already died and are now in hell, meaning those living souls would also end up in hell, so that the client ends up having to know they're going to spend eternity knowing that person is in hell with them. Blitz himself points this out to Oopty.
If we do kill him though, and he ends up down here, you will be stuck with him forever.
I think Blitz just realized the flaw in his company mission statement. As Has Been Hotel established, there's a purge that happens to control the overpopulation in hell, so IMP are actually working to make the population problem even worse. Though a pilot is meant to be a standalone episode and is not necessarily canon with the series that follows, in Helluva Boss's case, the pilot is essential viewing before watching the official episode 1 of the show.
Hi there, I'm Blitz. The O is silent, and I'm the founder of IMP. Are you a piece of who got yourself sent to hell, or are you an innocent soul who got over by someone else? Well, luckily for you, thanks to our company's special access to the living world, we can help you take care of your unfinished business by taking out anyone who screwed you over when you were alive.
The pilot explains how IMP works, but the show that follows after doesn't really do this.
After one measly massacre propelled by blind rage. So that's why I'm here. To get my revenge.
Yeah, I don't think you quite understand how we're operating down here. See, we take revenge out on the living, and it sounds like the core cast of your sitcom of a death, frankly, are all probably down here in hell with you.
Imagine watching episode 1 without watching the pilot, and this is the explanation for how IMP works. I mean, yeah, it's better than no explanation whatsoever, but this goes by so fast. At least the pilot has a pretty elongated and easy to listen to explanation as to how IMP operates, and then has a fun jingle after it to help you remember said established exposition. This makes the pilot absolutely essential viewing before watching the series. And since pilots are meant to be standalone episodes and not necessarily canon with the rest of the show, this to me is a big problem. It feels like a lot of the little world building that is in the show is like a blink and you miss it sort of thing. Or you have to pay really close attention to what is said. Meaning that you have to rewatch the episodes over and over to get some kind of loose and basic understanding of exactly how this version of Hell works. Yeah, okay, that adds to the rewatch value, but maybe it's just me. And it probably is just me. I just don't like how loosey-goosey Helluva Boss plays with its world building. It's like, oh, if you listen to this podcast, this gets explained. Or, oh, if you listen to what so-and-so said really fast and quickly in this particular episode, then this will explain it for you. Or if you look at a poster in the background or a billboard in the background, that explains it. But it's only on screen for not even a split second, so you have to pause it to get any answers. That to me is incredibly frustrating. The show itself also makes callbacks to the pilot, again, making the pilot essential viewing before watching the series. A good example would be Luna and Moxie's back and forth argument about Moxie's weight. The pilot also establishes what Blitz did with Solas in order for IMP to exist in the first place, which is not stated in the show until episode 1 of season 2, which is almost scene by scene the same as the pilot. Another point I need to make is, remember the episode where Blitz and Moxie were kidnapped by humans and the humans were interrogating them for what they were doing? Remember how it was implied we would see these humans again at the end of the episode? This hasn't been mentioned once since this episode. So maybe this will come back in the next season? Who knows? The problem I have with this show is that it has so many plot threads that it's become bloated. In episode 4 of the first season, IMP was hired by Oopty to kill his partner. So these two guys invented a machine that essentially stops or reverses the aging process. But their machine also had a lever that had an age forward option as well, which is what caused Oopty to die. You would think the imps would go, oh gee, the humans were almost successful at inventing a machine which basically gives humans eternal life. We'd better make sure this is foiled, as it would ruin our job in the whole ecosystem of hell. No, let's instead drop that story entirely and have it be about the imps and cherubs fighting over one soul who is on his deathbed. Also, I have to ask, in episode 6, when Blitz and Moxie are kidnapped by the humans, Solas is not only able to pinpoint exactly where they are, but is also able to get to the human world via possession of one of the humans, but then says in episode 2 of season 2, when his daughter Octavia goes to the human world, he's not able to pinpoint her location, and also says that his powers are limited without his grimoire.
I'm afraid without my grimoire, my powers are just a tad limited in the human world.
It's also shown in episode 1 when he's in the bath that he's able to spy on Blitz's location while he's in the human world. So why wasn't he able to find Octavia?
Why would she do this? How are we supposed to find her? Where would she go?
Why is he able to conjure up portals to go between rings without using his grimoire, which he says he needs in order to do so? But then in other episodes, he says he can't do this without his grimoire, but yet is letting Blitz keep the grimoire and only wants it back once a month so he can do his job. I know I'm being a bit nitpicky here, but when this is the very foundation of what the show is about, it makes the foundation very flimsy and inconsistent. Pointing out a show's flaws doesn't mean I think it has no strengths. I like this show. I keep coming back to it because the characters are genuinely interesting in both their designs and personality. But if I wanted a series about self-destructive characters unraveling themselves into drunken stupors while trying to navigate through toxic relationships, I can watch BoJack Horseman for that. Helluva Boss does deliver a fun and engaging show, but to me it also fails to deliver what the pilot promised in the first place. I'm still on the fence as to whether this is a good thing or not, since the show is bloated with so many plot lines that will hopefully be tied up in the next season. Let's see what happens. I'm Mad Munchkin, stay creative.